My cheating wife and guests joked about my drinking. My son quietly pulled me aside with a secret. When affection becomes cheating. A man's seemingly ideal existence is shattered upon the revelation of his wife's betrayal. This narrative is filled with startling disclosures, intense confrontations, and unwavering revenge, compelling him to confront the consequences of betrayal with relentless resolve. Prepare for an emotional journey that spares no intensity and offers an indelible experience. Please subscribe this channel, like and share. Now, to the story.
The morning light filtered through the curtains, piercing my aching head like daggers. I sat up, still sleepy on the couch, clad in the clothes from the previous night. Muffled laughter wafted in from the kitchen, where my wife Lucy and our dinner guests, her best friend Richie and her husband Jackie, were sharing jokes. Yes, one thing I want to add here. Richie is not legal wife of Jackie. She is an open relationship partner for money and a place to stay and portraying as his wife. A rented flat provided by Jackie, and he stays with her, unless his legal wife stays here. Actually, his wife staying with her aged parents, as there are no one to look after them. So, Jackie taking advantage of her situation, without her knowledge, I believe. I don't have more information about Richie. But yes, Jackie's character will be assassinated below. Be here till the end. Now, coming back to our story. The terms lightweight and can't handle his drinks reached my ears, accompanied by Lucy's sharp laughter. Morning, sleepyhead, Lucy called, her voice thick with mockery as she leaned against the doorway, coffee mug in hand, looking far too cheerful for someone recovering from a hangover. You were out cold by 9. You should probably skip the whiskey next time. Yeah, you missed quite the party, Jackie added with a smirk. Their laughter grated on my nerves, and something felt amiss. Perhaps it was Lucy's avoidance of my gaze or the smug tone in Jackie's voice. My son Liam entered, his expression pale and serious. Dad, he whispered, tugging at my sleeve. Come upstairs now. The urgency in his voice instantly sobered me, and I followed him to his room, the faint echoes of Lucy's laughter trailing behind us. Liam shut the door and retrieved a small stuffed bear from his shelf. I hid a camera in here, he said, pulling out a tiny device. Why? I asked, bewildered. I overheard some things last week. I didn't trust Mom. My heart sank. What are you talking about, Liam? He remained silent, connecting the camera to his tablet and pressing play. The footage was grainy yet clear enough to reveal Lucy and Jackie in our living room after I had stumbled off to bed. Their laughter felt like nails on a chalkboard as they leaned into each other, whispering and touching in ways that left no room for doubt. At one point, Richie entered with a glass in hand, smirking at them. You two better stop before he wakes up, she teased, her tone lacking any seriousness. My stomach churned as Liam paused the video. I didn't want to show you, he said softly, but you need to know. For a moment, I was breathless, my mind racing to comprehend the betrayal I had just witnessed. The audacity of their casual behavior in my home was overwhelming. Rage simmered just beneath the surface, threatening to burst forth. Don't mention this to anyone, I instructed Liam, gripping his shoulder firmly. My voice remained steady, yet internally, I was unraveling. I would manage the situation. As I descended the stairs, the laughter from the kitchen grew louder. Lucy was refilling coffee mugs, her eyes glinting with what I now recognized as smug satisfaction. Jackie lounged in his chair, appearing far too at ease for a guest. I clenched my fists, my body vibrating with anger, but I compelled myself to sit. I would not lose my composure, not yet, not until I had a strategy. Feeling more composed, Lucy sweetly asked if I wanted some toast, sliding a plate in front of me. No, thank you, I replied, my tone cold and measured. She seemed oblivious, or perhaps indifferent. All I knew was that her laughter would not endure for much longer. The sounds from the kitchen tormented me as I perched on the edge of Liam's bed, staring at the paused video on his tablet. My pulse raced in my ears, drowning out the faint conversations below. On the screen, Lucy and Jackie whispered and touched inappropriately, their movements casual as if they bore no concerns. My son sat beside me, looking older than his years. "Dad, I didn't know what to do," he said quietly. "I just thought you should know. You did the right thing." I murmured, my throat parched. "But you don't need to worry about this. I will handle it." Liam nodded, his expression a blend of relief and sadness. He was too young to be entangled in this turmoil, too innocent to grasp the full extent of the betrayal. I, however, had no illusions about the implications. There was no hope for an innocent explanation. The evidence was clear in the video: the lies, the disrespect, the callousness. I embraced Liam and instructed him to remain in his room before heading back downstairs. My mind was a tempest of anger, confusion, and grim resolve. Each step felt heavier than the last, yet I forced myself to maintain my composure. If I confronted Lucy now, I would lose control. I required irrefutable evidence. In the kitchen, Lucy was facing away from me, rinsing coffee mugs, while Richie was engrossed in her phone. Jackie leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a smug grin on his face. The sight of them caused a wave of nausea to wash over me. "Hey, George," Lucy greeted cheerfully upon noticing me, her tone overly bright. I nodded slowly, attempting to maintain a neutral expression. "Yeah, just needed some fresh air." "Good," she replied, her voice laced with insincerity. "We were worried about you last night. You passed out so early. Jackie practically carried you to the couch." "Thanks for that," I replied flatly, my tone devoid of warmth. "I appreciate it." Jackie chuckled, glancing at Lucy. "No problem, man. We're all friends here." Term "friends" stung like acid. I poured myself a glass of water and took a seat at the table, observing their interactions. Each glance exchanged between Lucy and Jackie, every subtle touch, felt like a blow to my gut. How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? "I was thinking," I said, striving for a casual tone. "Maybe we should plan something enjoyable for the weekend, a little family trip to the lake." Lucy looked at me, taken aback. "The lake? Really? Why not?" I shrugged. "It's been a while since we all spent time together." Richie smirked, remarking, "Sounds like someone's feeling sentimental." Jackie laughed nervously. "I mean, it could be fun, fresh air, a break from all the drama." I fixed my gaze on him, my expression unreadable. A break from the drama sounds perfect. That evening, after everyone had left, I waited until Lucy was asleep before retrieving the camera from Liam's room. Watching the full video felt like tearing open a wound, but I needed to uncover every whispered word and every stolen kiss, each one a dagger to my heart. "Do you think he suspects anything?" Lucy's voice was low yet clear. Jackie chuckled softly. "Please, George is clueless. He was out before we even started." The casual cruelty in their words ignited a fury within me. They had not only betrayed me, they had ridiculed me in my own home, with my son sleeping just down the hall. I turned off the video. My hands shook as I grappled with the betrayal, which was already painful enough, but Lucy's audacity only deepened the wound. She was not merely deceiving me, she was treating me like a fool, a puppet whose strings she could manipulate at will. The following morning, I rose early, resolute in my intention to regain control. While Lucy remained asleep, I took her phone and connected it to my laptop. She believed she was clever, erasing texts and covering her tracks, yet she underestimated my determination. What I uncovered was far worse than I had anticipated. A multitude of messages exchanged between her and Jackie, each one more incriminating than the last. They mocked me, arranged their clandestine meetings, and even shared photographs. My stomach churned as I perused the evidence, each message adding another layer to the wall of their betrayal. By the time Lucy emerged from her slumber, I was seated at the table, sipping coffee and feigning interest in the news. She descended the stairs, her hair tousled, and greeted me with a kiss on the cheek as if nothing were amiss. "Good morning," she said, reaching for a cup of coffee. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I replied, maintaining a neutral tone. She seemed oblivious to the tension in my voice, Or perhaps she simply did not care. Taking a seat across from me, she began scrolling through her phone, entirely unaware of what I had discovered. I observed her for a moment, pondering how she could remain so composed and indifferent. Did she feel any guilt or remorse, or was she so engrossed in her little charade that she was blind to the harm she was inflicting? "Lucy," I spoke, my voice unexpectedly breaking the silence. She looked up, startled. "Yes?" I gazed at her, my heart racing. "Do you ever reflect on everything we've endured, all the years we've dedicated to building this life together?" Her expression softened slightly. "Of course I do, George. Why do you ask?" I scrutinized her face, searching for any hint of sincerity, but all I found was the same facade she had maintained for months. "Just curious," I replied quietly, my mind already strategizing my next move. Lucy remained unaware of what was about to unfold. I was finished being the naive one. The game was over, and it was time for me to take charge. The day dragged on, slow as molasses. Lucy's cheerful demeanor grated on my nerves, her sweet voice oozing with a confidence that only comes from believing one has successfully evaded scrutiny. She moved about the house as if everything were perfectly normal, completely oblivious to the turmoil brewing within me. I played my part, smiling when necessary, nodding at her jokes, and pretending that the foundations of our marriage were not crumbling. She had no idea that I had already copied her texts, saved the video, and documented everything I needed. Each word, each lie was a thread unraveling her web of deceit. I was not ready to confront her yet. That moment would come later, when it would impact her the most. First, I needed to set the stage. That evening, I proposed a family barbecue. Lucy hesitated initially, likely worried about how Jackie and Richie might respond after my sudden suggestion to visit the lake earlier. However, her hesitation was short-lived. Lucy relished the role of the perfect wife, and the idea of an impromptu gathering seemed to boost her ego. "Sounds great," she said, her tone overly sweet. "I'll text Richie and Jackie." "Perfect," I replied, offering a smile just enough to keep her at ease. By the time our guests arrived, the backyard was illuminated with string lights, and the aroma of grilling steak filled the air. Jackie entered with an air of confidence, his smirk igniting a simmering anger within me. Richie followed closely, balancing a bottle of wine, her expression as self-satisfied as ever. "You've truly outdone yourself, George," Jackie remarked, giving me a friendly slap on the shoulder. "The grill master at work." "Anything for good friends," I replied, maintaining a calm demeanor that concealed my true feelings. "Help yourselves to a drink and make yourselves at home." Lucy flitted about, engaging in conversation and laughter, seemingly unaffected by her recent exposure as the central figure in this tangled drama. It was almost remarkable how effortlessly she could deceive not only me but everyone else around her. Had I not witnessed the video, I might have believed in her genuine happiness. However, I had seen it, and tonight, her carefully constructed facade was destined to crumble. As the evening progressed, I allowed the dialogue to flow organically, subtly guiding it to gauge how far Lucy and Jackie would extend their charade. It resembled a well-rehearsed dance routine, each laugh and touch meticulously orchestrated to evade most observers, but not me. "Do you remember that trip to the mountains last year?" Richie suddenly inquired, her gaze shifting toward Lucy. "That was quite a wild weekend." Lucy momentarily froze before responding with a laugh. "Oh yes, that was enjoyable. You all should have joined us, George." Her slip was minor, nearly undetectable, yet it was there. I noted it, adding it to the accumulating evidence of her underestimation of my awareness. She believed I would dismiss it, but I was no longer the man she had deceived for months. I was now engaged in a far more significant game. As the night began to draw to a close, I decided to make my move. I stood, raising my glass in a feigned toast to good friends and sincere company. "To the little things that bring us closer," I declared, my voice steady as I locked eyes with Lucy. Her smile wavered momentarily, confusion flickering across her face, and I paused to let my words resonate, emphasizing the notion of trust. Jackie shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and Lucy's gaze darted toward him. Richie reclined, observing the unfolding drama with barely concealed amusement. "What is this about?" Lucy inquired, her tone taut. I set my glass down with intention and replied, "It concerns my fortune in having such wonderful friends and a devoted wife." The ensuing silence was palpable. Jackie's hand twitched, Richie's smirk broadened, and Lucy's composure began to falter. "You've had a bit too much to drink," Lucy remarked, her voice now sharper. "Perhaps we should conclude this." "I am completely sober," I countered, maintaining a calm demeanor. "But you are correct. Let us bring this to a close." I retrieved my phone, locating the video Liam had shared with me, and with a swift motion, I cast it onto the patio's television screen. The footage played, its clarity unmistakably damning. Lucy sprang to her feet, her complexion paling. "What on earth is this?" Jackie's chair scraped against the concrete as he rose, his face ashen. Richie's laughter sliced through the tension. "This is Rich," she remarked, shaking her head. "I knew you'd eventually be caught." Lucy turned on her, her voice a venomous hiss. "Be quiet, Richie, you don't know what you're saying. I believe we all understand precisely what is occurring," I asserted, my voice rising. "You have been deceiving me, betraying me, and making a fool of me in my own home. And you," I directed my gaze at Jackie, my voice laced with contempt, "were supposed to be my friend." Jackie stuttered, his face flushed. "George, I can explain." "I do not want your explanations," I snapped. "I want both of you to leave." Lucy's defiance ignited. "You are being dramatic. It was merely a foolish mistake." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, Lucy, a mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the store. This is betrayal." The tension escalated as Jackie attempted to exit, but I positioned myself in front of him, blocking his way. My voice dropped to a low, menacing growl. "You will not leave here until I am finished." Lucy seized my arm, her voice laced with desperation. "Now, George, let us discuss this in private." "Oh, we will discuss it," I replied, my gaze fixed firmly on Jackie. "But not before everyone here understands precisely what kind of person you are." Lucy's grip on my arm tightened as I moved closer to Jackie, her eyes wide with panic flitting between us. The cold, calculating fury within me began to simmer, but before I could utter another word, Richie began to clap slowly, the sound resonating like sarcastic applause. "Well, well," she said, reclining in her chair with an amused smirk. "This has just become much more entertaining. What's your plan, George? Are you going to beat him senseless? Or are you merely aiming for a dramatic exit?" Her casual derision stirred something primal within me, yet I resisted her provocation. "No, Richie," I replied, my voice calm and measured. "This is not about theatrics. It is about revealing the truth." Jackie attempted to push past me, his face flushed and sweaty. "I'm not staying for this circus," I growled, blocking his path. He hesitated, his bravado faltering under my intense glare, and reluctantly retreated to his chair. Lucy's voice trembled as she tried to regain control. "George, please, this isn't helping anyone. You're just creating a scene." "A scene?" I laughed bitterly. "You and Jackie created a scene when you chose to betray me in my own home. I am merely equalizing the situation." I turned my focus to Richie. "And you, sitting there with that smug expression, as if none of this affects you. What kind of friend witnesses this and remains silent?" Richie shrugged, her smirk unwavering. "Oh, I said plenty, just not to you." Lucy's head snapped toward her. "Richie, be quiet." Richie disregarded her, directing her attention back to me. "Do you really think Lucy is the only one who has been dishonest with you? You should consider why your marriage was so easily shattered in the first place." Her words struck me like a slap, but I refused to allow her to witness my reaction. "Do not shift the blame, Richie. This situation is not about me. It revolves around their betrayal." Richie tilted her head, her tone almost condescending. "Sure, George, keep telling yourself that." The atmosphere became increasingly oppressive, the tension almost unbearable. I focused on Lucy, hoping she would defend herself, retaliate, or show any sign of remorse, but she remained silent. Instead, she crossed her arms and leaned against the patio table, her expression one of defiance. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, her voice resolute. "Yes, I cheated. Yes, I lied. But let's not pretend our marriage was flawless. You have been distant for years, always working, always prioritizing Liam, never me. Is that your excuse?" I replied, incredulous. "I care too much about providing for our family and raising our son?" "No, George," she retorted sharply. "It's that you didn't care enough about me." Her words cut deep, yet they did not excuse her actions. "And that's why you turned to Jackie, because I didn't give you enough attention." Jackie shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "Look, man, I didn't mean for this to happen," he said. "Be quiet," I interrupted, my voice firm. "You have no right to speak after what you've done." The ensuing silence was suffocating, broken only by the distant sound of crickets. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. I was not finished. There was more to disclose. Reaching into my pocket, I retrieved a small envelope. "While preparing for this barbecue, I did some investigating," I stated coldly. "And guess what I found?" Lucy's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I tossed the envelope onto the table. Jackie and Richie exchanged anxious glances as Lucy hesitantly opened it. Her complexion drained as she examined the contents, printouts of emails, text messages, and financial records. "You were not merely betraying me on an emotional or physical level," I stated with an icy tone. "You have been diverting funds from our joint account into a private one, siphoning thousands of dollars over the past year. Would you care to explain this, Lucy?" Her mouth moved silently, like a fish struggling for breath. Jackie leaned in, scrutinizing the documents. "What is this?" I demanded, my irritation palpable. "Do not feign surprise," I retorted. "This is your work as well. I discovered your name linked to several of those transactions. It appears you were not only betraying my trust with my wife but also exploiting her to finance your ventures." Jackie recoiled, his expression a blend of guilt and alarm. "I had no idea." "Do not deceive me," I replied, my voice sharp enough to cut through steel. "You were fully aware of your actions." Lucy finally managed to speak, albeit with a tremor in her voice. "I was going to repay it." "Repay it?" I echoed, my voice rising. "With what? More fabrications? More misappropriated funds?" Richie, who had been unusually quiet, let out a low whistle. "Wow, Lucy, you are even worse than I imagined." Lucy shot back, her anger palpable. "Oh, be quiet, Richie. You are no angel either. Do not pretend otherwise." Richie interrupted, her voice suddenly icy. "If you wish to drag me into this, be prepared to face the consequences alongside me." The venom in her tone took me by surprise. It was evident that Lucy was aware of some hidden truth. However, at that moment, I was solely focused on unearthing every deception and betrayal that had tainted my existence. "I am finished," I declared, standing resolutely. "You are all toxic, and I refuse to waste another moment on any of you." Lucy advanced, desperation evident in her eyes. "George, wait! Save it!" I interjected sharply, having heard enough. As I turned and walked away, I felt a burden begin to lift from my chest. The reckoning was not yet complete, but I had taken the initial step toward reclaiming my life. The journey ahead would be equally unforgiving. The following morning, I awoke to the sounds of Liam moving about in the kitchen. Sleep had eluded me, my mind replaying the events of the previous night. I was finished with being a victim. Lucy, Jackie, and even Richie believed they could entrap me in their web of deceit, but they were gravely mistaken about my resilience. It was time to take control of the narrative. Liam glanced up from his cereal as I entered the room. "You okay, Dad?" he inquired cautiously. "I'm fine," I replied, tousling his hair. "Better than fine, actually. I have a plan." He nodded, his trust in me unwavering, and returned to his breakfast. I poured myself a cup of coffee, already strategizing my next moves. Lucy had departed early that morning, claiming she needed space to think. She did not disclose her destination, and I did not press her for details. It was irrelevant. I had no intention of remaining idle while she concocted another web of lies. My first call was to my attorney, Carla, a sharp and pragmatic woman who had previously assisted a friend with his tumultuous divorce. She listened attentively as I recounted the affair, the embezzled funds, and the evidence I possessed. "You have a strong case," she stated after a brief pause. "However, to emerge victorious, you will need more than just evidence. You must control the narrative." "What do you mean?" I inquired. "You need to take the initiative. Lucy will attempt to portray herself as the victim, claiming you neglected her and that the affair stemmed from your shortcomings as a husband. If you allow her to dictate the terms, you will find yourself on the defensive throughout the divorce." Her words resonated deeply. Lucy had always excelled at distorting the truth, turning every disagreement into my fault. I could not allow her to proceed with that course of action, especially given the significant stakes involved. I inquired about her suggestions. Carla presented a plan that was both audacious and unconventional, precisely what I required. By the time our conversation concluded, I experienced a newfound clarity. Lucy had significantly underestimated my resolve, which was her initial error. I dedicated the day to gathering all pertinent materials, financial documents, text messages, videos, every piece of evidence that illustrated the extent of Lucy's betrayal. However, I did not stop there. I also assembled evidence of Jackie's participation in her schemes, along with Richie's complicity. The more I discovered, the more evident it became that this situation extended beyond mere infidelity. It was a calculated effort to manipulate and exploit me both financially and emotionally. By evening, I felt prepared. I dispatched several meticulously crafted emails to influential individuals within our social circle, friends, family, and even a few of Lucy's colleagues. I refrained from sharing any incriminating videos or scandalous content. Instead, I framed my message as a sincere account of the challenges I was facing and the difficult choices that lay ahead. This approach was sufficient to sow seeds of doubt regarding Lucy's narrative without appearing vindictive. Subsequently, I contacted Jackie's wife, Emily. Although we were not particularly close, I had always held her in high regard, and she deserved to be informed of the truth. When she answered, her voice was tentative. "George, is everything all right?" she asked. "No," I replied candidly. "But I believe you have a right to know what has truly been happening." By the following morning, the repercussions had already begun. Lucy burst into the house, her face flushed with rage. "What on earth did you do, George?" she demanded, slamming the door behind her. "I am not sure what you are referring to," I responded calmly while sipping my coffee. "Do not feign ignorance," she retorted. "Everyone has been calling me, asking questions, and making accusations. You have been spreading lies about me." I raised an eyebrow. "Would you like to see the evidence again, or should I send it to everyone who has yet to contact you?" Her eyes narrowed. "You believe this will make you appear virtuous? You are pathetic." "Perhaps," I replied, rising to my feet. "But at least I am honest. Can you express the same sentiment?" Before she could reply, her phone vibrated. She looked at the screen, her expression darkening. I recognized the caller before she even picked up. Richie. Their alliance was disintegrating more rapidly than I had expected. I couldn't help but smirk. There was trouble in paradise. "Don't push me, George," she hissed, though the venom in her tone was tinged with fear. She understood that I now held the advantage. Later that day, I received a call from Emily. Her voice trembled, yet there was a hint of resolve. "I confronted him," she stated. "He confessed everything." "I'm truly sorry, Emily," I replied earnestly. "You didn't deserve this." "Neither did you," she responded. "But thank you for being honest. I'm filing for divorce." After hanging up, I experienced a peculiar blend of satisfaction and sorrow. This was not the life I had envisioned, but at least I was not alone in resisting. That evening, I convened a family meeting with Liam. I explained the situation in a way he could grasp, detailing what would change. He remained silent for a long time before finally nodding. "I'm proud of you, Dad," he said softly, "for standing up for yourself." His words impacted me more profoundly than anything Lucy had said. They reminded me of the reason I was fighting, not just for myself, but for him. He deserved a father who would not allow anyone to trample over him. As the pieces began to align, I felt a sense of closure emerging. Lucy's deceit had collapsed, Jackie's arrogant demeanor was in ruins, and Richie's schemes were falling apart. While I was uncertain about what the future held, one thing was clear: I was finally free. By the time the weekend arrived, the chaos was subsiding, but my struggle was far from over. Lucy had become unnervingly quiet, staying out late and avoiding me. I recognized that her silence was not a sign of defeat, it was a strategy. She was plotting something, and I needed to be prepared. With Liam spending the night at a friend's house, I had time to reflect. I sat at the dining table, reviewing the evidence I had gathered when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "You don't know the full story. Meet me at the coffee shop on 1st Street at 8 p.m. The cryptic message sent a chill through me. Was this a trap or merely another twist in this ongoing nightmare? I paused briefly before responding, inquiring, "Who is this?" There was no reply. At precisely 8 p.m., I entered the coffee shop, which was largely deserted, save for a woman seated in a corner booth, her face obscured by the wide brim of her hat. As I approached, she looked up, and I froze. It was Emily, Jackie's wife. "You sent the text," I stated, taking a seat across from her. She nodded, her hands tightly gripping her coffee cup. "I wasn't sure you would come. Why the secrecy?" I inquired, narrowing my gaze. "I didn't want this to reach Jackie or Lucy," she replied, her voice quivering. "I found something, George, something that alters everything." My heart raced as I leaned in closer. Emily retrieved a manila envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. "I accessed Jackie's computer after your call, hoping to uncover more messages or photos, but instead, I discovered this." I opened the envelope and examined the stack of documents. At first glance, they appeared to be business contracts, but as I skimmed through them, a sense of dread washed over me. These were not mere contracts. They were agreements between Jackie and Lucy, outlining payouts, fictitious loans, and plans to siphon money through my business accounts. "What is this?" I whispered in disbelief. "They have been plotting this for years," Emily replied, her voice cracking. "Jackie claimed it was just an affair, but this is fraud. They were exploiting you, using both of us." My hands shook as I continued to peruse the documents, each page revealing a more detailed account of the scheme that Lucy and Jackie had devised. The affair was not simply a matter of infidelity or discontent. It served as a cover for something far more nefarious. They had been embezzling funds by establishing fraudulent investments, intending to leave me financially ruined while they absconded with everything. Emily's voice trembled as she spoke, barely above a whisper. Jackie and Lucy had been discussing their plans to leave town, intending to take the money and vanish. I suspect they were biding their time for the opportune moment. "Why are you telling me this?" I inquired, my tone tinged with skepticism. "I never agreed to be part of this," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. I had always known Jackie to be deceitful, but I had no idea he was involved in criminal activities, nor did I realize that Lucy was complicit. Her words pierced me like daggers, each one inflicting a deeper wound than the last. I believed I had experienced the utmost betrayal, yet this revelation was an entirely different level of treachery. The remainder of the night was spent poring over the documents with Carla, who was taken aback by the extent of the betrayal. However, she wasted no time in outlining our subsequent actions. "This is no longer merely a divorce case," she asserted firmly. "This has escalated into a criminal issue, and we must involve law enforcement." I hesitated, the thought of subjecting Liam to a public legal battle causing me great distress. But I could not allow Lucy and Jackie to evade justice. "What is our first step?" I asked. "We need to set a trap," Carla replied. "We must devise something that catches them in the act. If we can demonstrate that they are actively attempting to defraud you, it will bolster your case and ensure they face significant repercussions." Although it was a risky endeavor, I concurred with her plan. With Carla's assistance, I orchestrated a fictitious business transaction using one of the accounts that Jackie and Lucy had targeted, aiming to entice them into transferring funds and thereby creating irrefutable evidence of their criminal activities. A week later, the trap was successfully established. I remained in my office, observing the account activity in real time. As anticipated, a transfer request appeared, originating from an IP address associated with Jackie's residence. Within minutes, a second request emerged, this one linked to Lucy's laptop. Carla, who was overseeing the situation from her office, promptly contacted me. "We have them," she declared, her tone filled with triumph. "I am notifying the authorities now." An hour later, the police arrived at Jackie's home. I watched from my vehicle as officers escorted him out in handcuffs, his complexion pale and his demeanor frantic. Lucy was apprehended next. She screamed and protested as they led her to the squad car, but her efforts were futile. The evidence was indisputable. The subsequent days were chaotic. Lucy and Jackie faced charges of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy, among other offenses. Emily initiated divorce proceedings, and I followed suit. For the first time in weeks, I experienced a sense of relief. The ordeal was finally concluding, yet the emotional scars lingered. Trust, once broken, is challenging to restore. Liam grappled with the situation, but we navigated it together. I concentrated on rebuilding our lives, taking it one step at a time. In retrospect, I recognized that the most painful aspect was not the betrayal itself, but rather how easily I had been deceived. However, I gleaned an important lesson. True strength lies not in evading pain, but in enduring it and emerging more resilient. As for Lucy, Jackie, and anyone else who believed they could exploit me, I had one final message: never underestimate a common man or wounded husband. Before leaving, hope you will subscribe this channel, if not done so far. Thank you.